As we celebrate the 4th of July, the echoes of America's Revolutionary War still resonate in places you might not expect. These aren't just tales of battles and heroism, but chilling encounters with the supernatural. Join me as we dive into the eerie legends that have haunted our nation's history for over 2 centuries. From the restless spirits of Cornwallis's Cave to the headless sentry of Wedgefield Plantation, these ghostly tales reveal a spine-tingling side of the Revolution you won't find in any textbook. Settle in for stories that will send shivers down your spine and remind you that the past is never truly gone. Welcome to a journey through America's haunted history. Copp's Hill Cemetery, nestled in the historic North End of Boston, is a place where the past and the present collide in eerie harmony. Established in 1659 and named after Copp the Cobbler, this ancient burial ground is the second oldest cemetery in Boston. It stands on an elevation bordered by Hull Street, Charter Street, and Snow Hill Street, and though time has leveled it by 7 feet to fill Mill Pond, its macabre history remains intact. During the Revolutionary War, Boston was a hotbed of fervent patriotism. After the Patriots chased and hemmed in the British on the Boston Peninsula, they compounded British misery by cutting off foraging parties desperate for food and supplies. The British, enraged and desperate, took out their frustrations in the most sacrilegious of ways. British Commanding General Thomas Gage, after a particularly nasty affair on Noodle and Hogg's Island, now consumed by landfill and a noisy airport, decided to construct a battery at Boston's North End. The chosen site was Copp's Hill, a place already brimming with tombstones, a sacred resting place for many souls. The construction of the battery brought not only the rumble of artillery, but also the desecration of graves. British troops stationed among the 24-pounders found a grim amusement in the tombstones. Bored and bitter, they took to using the gravestones for target practice. Muskets cracked, lead bullets flew, and the stones shattered under the relentless barrage. The soldiers, likely bolstered by draughts of rum and ale, jeered and hurled oaths at the patriots across the river, their anger manifesting in the desecration of the dead. One tombstone bore the brunt of their fury, that of Captain Daniel Malcolm. A smuggler and a thorn in the side of the British, Malcolm had once rallied over 400 men and boys to prevent the British from confiscating his contraband wine. Before his death in 1769, he had remarked that he wished to be buried 10 feet deep to be safe from British bullets. Ironically, in death, he became a target. The British troops, in a final act of spite, riddled his tombstone with bullets, a macabre reminder of his defiance. Today, Copp's Hill Cemetery is a place where the living and the dead coexist uneasily. Paranormal activity is rife, with reports of strange lights, muffled cries, painful groans, and shadowy figures lurking among the ancient tombstones. These restless souls, still steaming after their rude treatment, are said to haunt the cemetery, their legacy scarred and scattered to the wind. Visitors often speak of feeling a sudden chill as they walk through the cemetery, a coldness that seems to seep into their bones. The air is thick with a palpable sense of sorrow and anger, as if the spirits of the departed are still seeking justice for the indignities they suffered. Some Bostonians refuse to venture near the place, their superstitions fueled by generations of ghostly encounters. One night, a group of friends decided to explore Copp's Hill Cemetery, drawn by the allure of its haunted reputation. As they wandered among the tombstones, the moon casting long shadows across the grave markers, they felt an inexplicable unease. One of them, a young woman named Emily, paused in front of Captain Malcolm's tombstone. The stone, still displaying the scars from British bullets, seemed to radiate a cold anger. Suddenly, Emily felt a sharp drop in temperature. Her breath came out in frosty puffs, and she heard a faint whisper, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably there. "Safe from British bullets," the voice seemed to say, echoing Malcolm's dying wish. She turned to her friends, her eyes wide with fear, but before she could speak, they heard it too, a low, guttural groan that seemed to rise from the ground beneath their feet. They looked around, the shadows deepening, and saw what appeared to be a figure, dark and indistinct, moving between the tombstones. The figure seemed to glide, its form shifting and flickering in the moonlight. It stopped near Malcolm's grave, and for a moment they could see it clearly. A man in colonial attire, his face twisted in anguish. The apparition raised a hand as if to ward off unseen attackers, and then vanished into the night. The friends fled the cemetery, their hearts pounding, the air around them crackling with residual energy. They knew they had encountered the restless spirit of Captain Malcolm, still defiant, still angry, his soul bound to the place where his grave had been desecrated. As they left Copp's Hill, they felt the weight of history pressing down on them, the realization that the past was never truly gone. Copp's Hill Cemetery remains a place where the restless dead seek vengeance, their spirits wandering among the tombstones, forever bound to the land of the living. The scarred gravestones stand as silent witnesses to the desecration and the enduring anger of those who lie beneath. For the spirits of Copp's Hill, 250 years is but a moment in the eternity they have to seek their revenge, their haunting presence a chilling reminder of the past that refuses to fade. The air in Somerville, just outside Boston, is thick with history and the whispers of the past. Following the British General Johnny Burgoyne's surrender at Saratoga on October 7, 1777, his defeated army was herded south, their fate intertwined with the city's turbulent Revolutionary War era. Cambridge, originally asked to house the prisoners, responded with such animosity that the idea was quickly abandoned. Instead, the men were imprisoned in old barracks in Somerville, structures left by the Americans after the siege of Boston. While officer prisoners, paroled and awaiting exchange, enjoyed a degree of freedom, the rank and file endured the war's duration in confinement. Among these soldiers was Lieutenant Richard Brown, whose tragic fate would leave an indelible mark on the history of the area. On June 17, 1778, while descending Prospect Hill, Lieutenant Brown encountered a Patriot sentry. The exchange between them grew heated, and when Brown refused to obey the sentry's commands, the Patriot raised his musket and shot Brown point-blank in the face. Brown was killed instantly, his body collapsing onto the grassy hill. The event shocked the community, But a jury of 15 Cambridge men acquitted the sentry, a verdict that fueled British resentment. British Major General William Phillips, left in command of the prisoners after Burgoyne sailed for London, requested a funeral for the slain officer. Despite the tension, a service was permitted at Christ Church in Cambridge. This church, used as a barracks in 1775, had been closed since the commencement of hostilities. The reopening for Brown's funeral provided a rare opportunity for local residents to express their displeasure. As the service commenced, enraged Cambridge residents stormed the church, seizing the moment to vent their fury. An eyewitness account described the chaos. The Americans seized the opportunity of the church being open, which had been shut since the commencement of hostilities, to plunder, ransack, and deface everything they could lay their hands on, destroying the pulpit, reading desk, and communion table, and ascending the organ loft, destroyed the bellows, and broke all the pipes of a very handsome instrument. Despite the upheaval, the funeral concluded, and Lieutenant Brown was laid to rest in the vassal tomb of Christ Church. Years have passed, but the events of that day have left a lingering presence. Visitors and parishioners of Christ Church often report sightings of a faceless colonial soldier wandering the halls and haunting the adjacent old burying ground. This apparition, believed to be the restless spirit of Lieutenant Richard Brown, roams the church and its grounds, his spectral presence a chilling reminder of his violent death and the desecration that marred his final farewell. The faceless soldier, shrouded in the mist of memory, is a common sight among those who frequent the church. He appears in the quiet hours of the night, a shadowy figure moving silently through the pews, his face a blank canvas of sorrow and rage. Some say they feel a cold breeze as he passes, a chill that cuts to the bone, while others hear the faint echo of a musket shot, the sound that ended Brown's life and began his haunting vigil. During moonlit nights, the old burying ground becomes a stage for the spectral drama. Shadowy figures are seen darting among the gravestones, and the faceless soldier is often spotted standing near the vassal tomb, his presence a silent testament to his unrest. The lantern light flickers in the darkness, illuminating his ghostly form for a brief, terrifying moment before he vanishes into the night. One evening, a local historian named Margaret was conducting research at Christ Church, hoping to uncover more about its storied past. As she walked through the dimly lit nave, she felt an inexplicable pull towards the vassal tomb. The air grew heavy, and a sense of foreboding washed over her. Suddenly, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind her. Turning, she saw him, the faceless soldier, his form translucent, yet unmistakably there. He stood silently, his posture rigid with military precision, before raising his hand in a ghostly salute. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he was gone, leaving Margaret with a sense of profound sorrow and curiosity. The faceless soldier of Christ Church continues to haunt, his soul seemingly trapped between worlds. Perhaps it is the violent send-off he received from the passionate patriots of Cambridge that keeps him tethered to the site of his death. Or maybe it is the desire for revenge, an unfulfilled need for justice for the verdict passed down by the American Guardsmen's peers. Whatever the reason, Lieutenant Richard Brown's restless spirit remains a haunting presence, a reminder of a time when the lines between friend and foe were drawn in blood, and the echoes of the past refused to be silenced. As the years roll on, Christ Church and the old burying ground stand as monuments to history and the enduring legacy of those who fought and died. The faceless soldier, forever bound to the place of his untimely death, serves as a chilling reminder that some spirits never find peace, their stories continuing to unfold in the eerie silence of the night. Jockey Hollow, a somber and hallowed ground, is a place where history's darkest chapters are etched into the very landscape. During the winter of 1779 to 1780, Washington's Continental Army endured a season of unimaginable hardship in this desolate stretch of land. Far more brutal than the infamous winter at Valley Forge 2 years prior, the men faced abject pain, starvation, and suffering amidst 28 relentless snowstorms, with drifts reaching 15 feet and temperatures plunging below zero for weeks on end. The Army, destitute of funds, was unable to provide even the barest necessities: food, blankets, winter clothing, and adequate shelter. 10 or more men were crammed into cabins scarcely large enough for two, their daily existence a struggle to stay alive. Death and despair were constant companions. Down the hill from their drafty huts lies a boulder that serves as a grave marker for approximately 100 soldiers whose remains are interred beneath the soil, victims of the harsh winter and unrelenting conditions. The boulder stands as a cauldron of restless spirits, a fitting monument to the agony and suffering endured by the men of the Continental Army. It's no wonder that Jockey Hollow has become a hotspot for ghost sightings and paranormal activity. Hikers, visitors, and particularly reenactors have reported numerous encounters with the spectral remnants of that bleak winter. Among the most common sightings is a group of soldiers, their shadowy outlines marching in lockstep through the dense trees. These apparitions, often seen darting among the reconstructed huts, seem to replay their last days of torment in an endless loop. One reenactor, staying the night in one of the cabins, had an encounter that left her shaken. As she headed to the latrine, the eerie sound of fife and drum music abruptly emanated right next to her, only to stop as suddenly as it had started. The music, so vivid and real, seemed to bridge the gap between past and present, a haunting reminder of the lives that had once filled these now silent woods. During the quieter winter months, another spirit is often seen wandering the well-worn trails of Jockey Hollow. She is a translucent apparition of a woman carrying a lantern, dressed in a long, white, colonial-style dress. Her presence, ethereal and haunting, has been witnessed multiple times, her lantern casting a ghostly glow in the dark woods. Some believe she is the spirit of a woman who had lost a loved one during that fateful winter, forever searching for her fallen soldier amidst the snow-covered landscape. In one of the park's guest houses, visitors have reported an unusual sight: a brown dog chasing the owner's cat around the house. The canine appears to be real until it suddenly vanishes into thin air. The journals of the soldiers who survived Jockey Hollow speak of desperate measures taken to stave off starvation, including the heartbreaking decision to eat their beloved pet dogs. Could this spectral pooch be one of those unfortunate animals, its spirit lingering, seeking its lost owner? The tales of Jockey Hollow are not just confined to the boundaries of the park. Local legends speak of mysterious lights flickering in the woods, seen from miles away, and the sounds of phantom footsteps crunching through the snow. The presence of these restless spirits has left an indelible mark on the area, a chilling testament to the suffering endured by Washington's men. One evening, a family visiting Jockey Hollow decided to take a late-night walk, intrigued by the stories of paranormal activity. As they made their way through the darkened woods, The air grew colder, and a dense fog began to roll in, shrouding the trees in an eerie mist. Suddenly they heard the faint sound of drumming, a rhythmic beat that grew louder with each step. They stopped, hearts pounding as shadowy figures emerged from the fog, marching in perfect unison. The family watched in stunned silence as the ghostly soldiers passed by, their faces etched with the pain and determination of men who had endured unimaginable hardship. In the stillness that followed, the family continued their walk, the sense of unease lingering in the air. As they approached the boulder that marked the mass grave, they saw a figure standing nearby, holding a lantern. It was the woman in the white dress, her face pale and sorrowful. She looked at them with eyes filled with an eternal sadness before turning and disappearing into the mist. Jockey Hollow, with its tragic history and spectral inhabitants, remains a place where the past is ever present, a haunting reminder of the sacrifices made by those who fought for freedom. The ghosts of the Continental Army, along with the spirits of their loyal companions, continue to roam the woods, their presence a chilling testament to the enduring legacy of suffering and resilience. For those who visit, the echoes of that brutal winter can still be felt, a somber reminder that some spirits never find peace. Nestled in the heart of Concord, Massachusetts, the Colonial Inn stands as a solemn witness to the passage of time and the lingering echoes of a turbulent past. Built in 1716 by James Minot, this historic building has seen centuries of history unfold within its walls. During the Revolutionary War, the inn served as a makeshift hospital, a place where the horrors of battle and the crude medical practices of the time left an indelible mark. The rooms, once filled with the groans of the wounded and the cries of the dying, now harbor ghostly presences that whisper tales of pain and suffering to those who dare to listen. In the 1770s, a third building was constructed next to the original inn, expanding its capacity. Throughout the war, this inn became a crucial storage site for weapons, powder, and shot. But its most harrowing role was that of a hospital for the sick and wounded soldiers. The limited medical knowledge of the 18th century, compounded by the lack of anesthesia and primitive surgical tools, made these makeshift hospitals scenes of unimaginable suffering. Amputations were common, performed with tools borrowed from local blacksmiths, and infections often proved fatal. It was in this grim setting that countless soldiers faced their final moments, their agony imprinted on the very fabric of the building. Today, Room 24 of the inn, once the operating room, and Room 27, the former morgue, are epicenters of paranormal activity. Guests who stay in these rooms report strange occurrences, lights and televisions flickering on and off, disembodied voices echoing through the halls, and bizarre floating orbs that defy explanation. Among these spectral phenomena, the most frequently encountered apparition is that of a woman named Rosemary. Believed to have been a nurse at the inn during the war, Rosemary's presence is felt throughout the inn, her ghostly figure misting down hallways and hovering in rooms where she once tended to the wounded. One couple staying in Room 24 had an encounter they would never forget. The wife awoke in the dead of night to see a grayish figure, almost like a silhouette, moving from the bed to the fireplace. The apparition lingered for a moment before vanishing into thin air. Was it the spirit of a doctor seeking solace or warmth after yet another gruesome amputation? Or perhaps it was a patient slipping off the table in a desperate attempt to escape the surgeon's knife? The Colonial Inn, with its dark history and spectral inhabitants, is a place where the past refuses to rest. The walls, steeped in the anguish of those who suffered and died within, seem to breathe with the memories of the war. The inn's current guests, oblivious to the horrors of its past, often find themselves in the presence of these restless spirits, their experiences adding new layers to the inn's ghostly legends. Rosemary, the most famous of these apparitions, is often seen drifting down the hallways, her ethereal form a haunting reminder of the lives she once tried to save. She appears as a faint mist, her outline barely discernible in the dim light. Those who see her describe a feeling of profound sadness, as if the weight of the suffering she witnessed is carried with her in death. She moves with purpose, her spectral presence a testament to her dedication and the bond she still feels to the place where she once worked. In room 27, the former morgue, the atmosphere is particularly oppressive. Guests who stay there often report feeling a sudden drop in temperature, their breath visible in the cold air. Some have heard faint whispers, voices that seem to come from nowhere, speaking in hushed tones, as if discussing the fates of the patients who once lay there. The room itself feels heavy, as if the sorrow and pain of those who died there have seeped into the very walls. The inn's staff, well versed in the stories of its haunted past, often receive reports from guests about these strange occurrences. While some are skeptical, others have come to accept the presence of these spirits as an integral part of the inn's history. The manager, in particular, has heard countless stories of encounters with Rosemary and other ghostly figures. One guest, visibly shaken, recounted seeing a figure in a long dress standing at the foot of the bed, watching over them with a sorrowful expression before disappearing into the darkness. As the sun sets over Concord, casting long shadows across the historic town, the Colonial Inn stands as a silent sentinel to the past. The spirits of those who suffered and died within its walls remain, their presence a haunting reminder of the brutality of war and the indomitable human spirit. The stories of Rosemary and the other ghostly inhabitants continue to captivate and terrify those who hear them, ensuring that the legacy of the Colonial Inn and the souls who haunt it will never be forgotten. In the twilight years of the American Revolution, the battle had shifted southward. By 1780, British General Charles Cornwallis forces overwhelmed the American defenders throughout the Carolinas. Yet, patriot resilience shone through in the form of guerrilla warfare, spearheaded by leaders like General Nathaniel Greene and the infamous Swamp Fox, General Francis Marion. Known for his unconventional tactics and cunning use of spies, Marion became a thorn in the side of the British, his exploits becoming the stuff of legend. One such legend, entwined with both bravery and supernatural horror, involves a young girl, a daring rescue, and a headless sentry. Anne Ragg, daughter of the wealthy loyalist landowner Samuel Ragg, was a secret supporter of the Patriot cause despite her father's staunch loyalty to the Crown. Living on the expansive Wedgefield plantation near Georgetown, South Carolina, Anne found herself in a unique position to aid General Francis Marion. When several of Marion's men were captured and imprisoned in an outbuilding on her family's estate, Anne saw an opportunity to act. Her note, smuggled to Marion, detailed that most of the British soldiers were attending a party at the nearby Mansfield plantation. The prisoners were guarded by only one dragoon sentry. Acting swiftly, Marion and his men rode to Wedgefield under the cover of night. The young sentry, hearing the thunder of approaching hooves, called out,
"Who goes there?"
Before he could react, a rider burst from the darkness, and with a swift, brutal slice, the sentry was beheaded. Marion rescued his men and vanished into the night, leaving behind a gruesome scene. The sentry was buried in an unmarked grave on the plantation, and the incident seemed to conclude there. But soon after, eerie tales began to emerge. A few nights later, a plantation servant reported seeing a headless man staggering up the drive, clad in a blood-soaked British uniform. Initially dismissed as the result of overactive imagination, the sightings continued and grew more chilling. Anne herself became a witness to the supernatural. One evening she heard the unmistakable sound of hoofbeats approaching the house. Peering out her window, she saw the headless British officer dismounting from his horse. He stumbled towards the veranda, only to vanish before her eyes. Her story spread, and over the years, many others claimed to have seen the headless ghost, either mounted or staggering along the roads and driveways of Georgetown. Witnesses described a spectral figure, an awful and gruesome sight to behold. The ghost would often appear after strange noises, such as the distant roar of hooves or the clattering of chains. Near Halloween, these sightings became more frequent, with the headless sentry showing himself in unexpected places, including downtown Georgetown. The sounds of thundering hoofbeats or dragging chains announced his presence, and he always appeared headless, dressed in the uniform of a British dragoon. One such account came from a local historian named Edward. Intrigued by the tales, he decided to spend the night near the old plantation grounds. As dusk fell, Edward felt a growing sense of unease. The air grew heavy, and the sounds of the night seemed to amplify. Just as he was about to dismiss the stories as mere legend, he heard the unmistakable clattering of hooves in the distance. His heart raced as he turned to see a headless figure on horseback emerging from the shadows. The ghostly rider, clutching a pistol in one hand, rode past Edward and vanished into the mist. On another occasion, a group of teenagers, out for a late-night adventure, encountered the ghost while exploring the old plantation. As they wandered the grounds, they heard chains being dragged across the front porch. Before they could react, the headless sentry appeared, his uniform tattered and stained with blood. The teenagers, paralyzed with fear, watched as the ghostly figure tottered about, searching for his lost head. With a sudden, swift motion, the spectre raised his pistol and aimed it at them, only to disappear in a puff of cold air. Even in downtown Georgetown, the ghost makes his presence known. Residents have reported seeing the headless sentry on quiet streets, his form illuminated by the flickering street lamps. He appears suddenly, his headless body swaying as if disoriented, before vanishing just as quickly. The spectral figure seems to be on an eternal quest, searching for the head he lost on that fateful night. The legend of the headless sentry has become an enduring tale, captivating and terrifying those who hear it. As one witness remarked, "The rush of seeing him is well worth the fright." The story, much like Washington Irving's Headless Horseman, stands as a testament to the lasting impact of the Revolutionary War, a haunting reminder of the sacrifices made and the lives forever changed. General Francis Marion, the cunning swamp fox, could not have foreseen that his daring rescue would give rise to such a chilling ghost story. The headless sentry of Wedgefield Plantation remains a spectral guardian of history, his presence a chilling reminder that some spirits refuse to rest, forever bound to the land of their final battle. As the years pass, his legend grows, ensuring that the tale of the headless sentry will continue to raise the hair on the back of listeners for generations to come. Yorktown, Virginia, a place steeped in the annals of American history, bore witness to the final, decisive siege of the Revolutionary War. From September 28th to October 19th, 1781, the siege and battle of Yorktown unfolded, sealing the fate of British General Charles Cornwallis and his beleaguered troops. The thunderous roar of American and French artillery shattered the calm, raining destruction upon the trapped British forces. Any hope of reinforcements or supplies reaching Cornwallis was extinguished by the formidable French fleet, leaving the British with no choice but to surrender. This monumental victory marked the beginning of the end for British rule in America. Amidst the chaos and carnage, legend has it that Cornwallis soldiers, along with African Americans who had flocked to the British banner with the promise of freedom, sought refuge in Yorktown's caves. One cave in particular, known as Cornwallis's Cave, became a place of haunting refuge. Conflicting testimonies swirl around its use. Some say it was the British troops seeking to escape the relentless bombardment, while others claim it was the citizens of Yorktown taking shelter from the explosive shells. Regardless, the cave's dark depths provided a grim sanctuary from the horrors above. The cave's history extends beyond the war. It was reputedly used for smuggling, a clandestine means to avoid paying duty on goods both before and after the war. Today, Cornwallis Cave is gated, its entrance barred to the curious and the unwary. Yet, the echoes of the past remain. On still nights, voices are heard emanating from the cave's depths. Some say these are the muffled cries of British soldiers, the moans of the injured and dying who forever hide in the cave's darkened bowels. One autumn evening, a historian named James decided to explore the history of Cornwallis's Cave. He had long been fascinated by the tales of the cave's haunted past and sought to uncover the truth behind the legends. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of trepidation, he approached the gated entrance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, James felt a chill in the air, an ominous precursor to what lay ahead. The cave's entrance, framed by jagged rocks and creeping vines, seemed to breathe with a life of its own. James peered through the gate, his flashlight beam piercing the darkness. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. As he stood there, the silence was broken by a faint whisper, barely audible but unmistakably human. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end as he strained to listen.
Help us.
The voice, fragile and distant, sent a shiver down his spine. James took a step back, his flashlight flickering as if reacting to an unseen presence. The whispering grew louder, joined by the faint sound of footsteps echoing from the depths of the cave. Panic set in, but his curiosity overpowered his fear. He leaned closer, gripping the gate for support.
Why do you stay here?
James muttered under his breath, his voice trembling. The cave seemed to respond with a cacophony of sounds, muffled cries, desperate pleas, and the agonized moans of the dying. He could almost picture the scene. British soldiers huddled together in the darkness, their faces etched with fear and pain. The cries of the wounded mingled with the sobs of those who knew their fate was sealed. James was not alone in his experiences. Many locals had reported similar encounters. One evening, a couple walking near the cave had heard the unmistakable sound of musket fire, followed by the anguished screams of soldiers. They described seeing shadowy figures moving within the cave, their forms flickering like candlelight. Another witness, a young woman named Emily, had heard the faint strains of a military drum, its steady beat echoing through the night air. The tales of Cornwallis's cave extend beyond mere auditory phenomena. Some have claimed to see the apparitions of British soldiers, their spectral forms appearing and disappearing at the cave's entrance. These ghostly figures, dressed in tattered redcoats, seem to be forever bound to the cave, their restless spirit unable to find peace. The cave itself, with its dark history and spectral inhabitants, remains a place of eerie fascination and dread. On another occasion, a group of paranormal investigators ventured to Cornwallis's cave, hoping to document the supernatural activity. As they set up their equipment, they felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The temperature dropped suddenly, and their breath became visible in the cold air. One of the investigators, a man named Alex, captured an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, that sent chills through the team. The recording played back the unmistakable sound of a man's voice, whispering,
"We are trapped."
As the night wore on, the investigators witnessed shadowy figures darting in and out of the cave, their movements swift and elusive. One member of the team felt a cold hand brush against his shoulder, only to turn and find nothing there. The sense of despair and anguish was palpable, as if the very walls of the cave were infused with the suffering of those who had taken refuge there. The legacy of Cornwallis's cave is one of enduring sorrow and haunting memories. The spirits of those who sought shelter from the relentless bombardment and the cruelties of war remain trapped within its dark confines. Their cries for help, their moans of pain, and their spectral appearances serve as a chilling reminder of the horrors they endured. As James left the cave that evening, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had witnessed something profound. The voices, the shadows, and the overwhelming sense of despair had left an indelible mark on him. He knew that the stories of Cornwallis Cave were more than just legends. They were a testament to the enduring legacy of those who had suffered and died in the pursuit of freedom. Yorktown, with its rich history and haunted past, continues to captivate and terrify those who venture into its depths. The ghosts of Cornwallis's cave, forever bound to their dark refuge, remain a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made during the Revolutionary War. For those who listen closely, the echoes of the past are still very much alive, whispering their tales of sorrow and survival in the darkness of Cornwallis's cave.